Willkommen. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean Huggins and this is React with Hugs. Thank you so much for being here. A couple days ago on this channel, I covered a story about the largest cannon ever made. It was made by Adolf Hitler, the Nazis, and I forget, it was like Heavy Gustav, Giant Gustav or something was the name of it. I don't know. I forget. But seeing that video led me to this video today, which is the Nazi mouse, the biggest tank ever made. So we're going to see what's up with the biggest tank ever made. And of course, it was made by the Nazis, who had a fascination with trying to make mega weapons or something. I don't even know. But let's just hop straight into it and see what's going on here with the mouse, the Nazi mouse. Los geht's.
It's late 1945 and the Allies are pushing deep into Germany. All seems lost for the Wehrmacht, and Soviet soldiers closing in on Berlin settle in for a day's rest. They've been pushing non-stop for weeks, chasing the once formidable German army across the Soviet tundra and into the heart of Germany. Today will be a well-earned rest. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake. Faint at first, but growing in intensity. Some of the men laugh. "Earthquake!" they shout. But the rumbling continues on. Then they can hear it. The unmistakable sound of belching engines and the rumbling of tank treads. Soviet T-34s roar to life and advance to meet the threat as the infantry scrambles to prepare for combat. The thick wooded line ahead of the Soviet advance forces suddenly parts, trees pushed aside like matchsticks as massive armored behemoths emerge from the dark forest like primordial monsters. The Soviet tankers are too shocked to react. These German tanks, painted in green and brown camouflage, are over twice the size of their own tanks. Matter of fact, the top of their
oh my gosh! Look at the freaking size of this thing, dude. Okay, yeah, I would just leave. I would just run away.
T-34 tanks can barely reach the bottom of the German tanks' turrets. The Germans are the first to fire. A single round from the massive 128mm cannon strikes T-34, creating a 5-foot-long tear in the chassis armor, half a foot wide, and blowing the turret clean off. The tank and the crew are instantly dead. The T-34s return fire in a panic, but their 76mm guns bounce off the 220mm of sloped steel armor of the German tanks. The T-34's own 47mm armor is worthless under the onslaught.
Dude, it just bounces off? What?
Slot of the German 128mm cannon. Even full frontal shots are guaranteed kills on the Soviet tanks. The Soviet lines break and the infantry retreat in a panic as they watch their armor decimated before their eyes. The tide of World War II has officially turned, and leading Nazi Germany's revenge is the largest tank ever created, the Panzer VIII Maus. This is the dream Hitler envisioned for the German army even before the tide began to turn against him. A big fan of super weapons, Hitler was no stranger to moon.
Okay, so that was the dream that Hitler had. Okay, dude, I was about to say this story is crazy. But okay, that's just what he wanted to happen, not what actually happened. All right, anyways, let's continue.
Moonshots, even when he should have been relying on more conservative, tried and tested weapons to maintain his grip on Europe. Some of these moonshots would achieve a level of success. The V-1 and V-2 rockets, or the Messerschmitt 262, for example, held.
What are these? I'm going to have to do a deep dive on these then.
The promise of achieving great military success, if they had been implemented earlier in the war. Other moonshots, though, such as the Scheuer Gustav super artillery, achieved little and sucked up valuable funding and time that were better spent elsewhere. However, none of Hitler's failed super weapons held quite the potential to change the tide of the war, like the Panzer VIII Maus. The Maus, or Mouse, because the Nazis had a flair for the ironic, was first pitched to Hitler in 1942 by Ferdinand Porsche. Yes, that Porsche.
Oh, whoa, ho, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. Whoa. What? That Porsche? Holy crap. Truth bomb just fractured my mind right now. Holy crap. I'll never look at Porsches the same way again.
Hitler had made it clear that he wanted a tank that would dominate the battle against any Allied tank. And while the German army was fielding some of the best tanks in the world at the time, the Soviet T-34 had proven to be a major surprise for German units fighting in the Soviet Union. German tankers were vastly superior to their Soviet counterparts, but the T-34 itself as a tank was more than a match for the German panzers. If the Soviets learned to be better tankers, the German Wehrmacht was in serious trouble. Porsche had the answer to the Führer's dreams of a super tank. It would be powered by an engine adapted from a design used to keep Germany's bombers in the air, and it would need all the 1,200 horsepower the engine produced to move the massive 200-ton tank. By comparison, both the King Tiger, Germany's premier heavy tank, and America's modern Abrams weigh in at around 68 tons.
Oh my gosh. These two tanks are 68 tons. The Maus is 200 tons. Holy crap.
The Maus would end up being over twice as heavy as any tank on the battlefield, ever. With a 1.1 meter wide track, almost twice the size of a modern Abrams, the Maus would make its presence known on a battlefield long before the enemy ever saw it. But the massive tank required equally massive treads, because without them, the ground pressure the vehicle exerted would make it impossible to drive almost anywhere without it sinking into the ground. As it was, the tank was never able to cross a bridge and would cause serious damage to paved roads. Instead, the tank would be either embarked to cross rivers or barges, or simply drive along the bottom with the aid of a snorkel for the crew. A second tank would...
what? It would just drive on the bottom of a freaking river? Yo, what? This is crazy.
Remain on shore and provide electrical power to the fording tank via a connected cable. Thus, special effort was made to help make the interior compartments watertight. To power such a massive beast of a tank would require oceans of fuel, and even with a 420-gallon tank, the Maus could only travel 38 miles in difficult terrain, or 100 miles in relatively flat and easy terrain, such as that of the Western Soviet Union. And Abrams today holds 500 gallons of fuel and has a range of up to 262 miles. With so much weight, the massive tank would certainly take time getting anywhere, as it had a maximum speed of just over 12 miles an hour. The Maus would never need to run from a fight, though, thanks to it being the most heavily armored vehicle in existence. The front of the hull was 220 millimeters of sloped steel armor, making it in essence completely invulnerable to enemy fire. The sides and rear, typically less well armored on any tank, were still 200 millimeters thick. This made even the rear of the Maus better protected than the King Tiger's front, which...
Dang! So this thing was basically, I mean, it was slow and it couldn't move, but also you weren't going to destroy this thing. Like, this thing was just completely explosion proof.
Allied tanks had already great difficulty penetrating at anything but point-blank range. With the tank being so slow, though, it only made sense that it would need such heavy protection all around it. Accompanied by supporting infantry, the Maus would in essence be impossible to defeat, except via concentrated anti-tank gunfire or close air support. Infantry handheld anti-tank weapons would be completely ineffective against such thick armor. The Maus would dish out even better than it could take it, though, with a 128mm main gun that absolutely dwarfed any tank cannon on the battlefield. It could even dwarf America's most modern Abrams, equipped with a 120mm gun. A 75mm coaxial secondary gun would also be equipped on the tank, doubling its lethality. A 7.92mm machine gun would keep enemy infantry at bay, and if all this wasn't enough firepower, the tank even had the option of equipping a full-blown anti-aircraft machine gun. This would allow it to defend itself from the only realistic threat on the battlefield.
So this is the ultimate frickin' tank right here. Look at this thing.
For the Maus, enemy close air support. Even the massive 128mm gun, however, was deemed too small for the tank. After Hitler saw a wooden mock-up of the tank in 1943, he commented that the main gun looked like a toy on the massive tank, and asked for the gun to be increased to an incredible 150mm cannon. Originally weighing in at 175 tons, Hitler's additional modifications would push the weight close to an astounding 200 tons. These additions would include a mortar for close defense and 3 additional ports in the turrets for submachine guns. Hitler was immediately in love with his super tank, and approval was given for production. It was estimated that German factories would be able to crank out 10 Maus a month, that figure later being revised to just 5. Even these incredibly low numbers, however, would have been more than enough for Germany to turn the tide with tanks that were nearly unkillable. The first prototype was produced in December 1943. It lacked a functional turret, instead a dummy turret the same weight and size as the real turret was installed, in order to help engineers test the tank in real-world conditions. The tank proved to be too slow, but surprisingly agile, with about half the turning radius of an American M4 Sherman. Despite positive tests, Allied bombing raids were severely hampering production of the Maus. Limited production capacity had to be prioritized for conventional German tanks, tried and true platforms that were known to work well. Changing production over to the Maus would also require a massive retooling of German factories and a retraining of its workforce, further disincentivizing the production of the Maus on a large scale. A second prototype was completed a few months after the first, in March 1944. This functional turret was fitted with a 128mm gun, a coaxial 75mm gun, and a 7.92 machine gun for air defense. However, by now, the war was already turning against Hitler in every theater, and the German industry simply could not afford to switch production over to the Maus, and additional 4 hulls under construction were ordered to be scrapped immediately, and the Maus would never leave the prototype phase. With the Soviet army closing in, the German military quickly moved to destroy their super tank prototypes. Explosive charges were placed in the engine and crew compartments, causing massive damage, but leaving the turret relatively intact.
Wow, so they always wanted to destroy their massive projects afterwards, like when they're about to lose the war. They did that with Heavy Gustav as well. Interesting. So they're like, if we can't have it, nobody can. We're taking our toys and we're going home.
The second Maus proved to be so formidable that the attempt to destroy it would prove to be less than successful, leaving the Soviets with quite the prize as they advanced through Germany. The Maus prototypes were quickly taken deep into the Soviet Union, where the scientists and engineers the tank was meant to defeat got a chance to study it in detail. The functional turret of the heavily damaged Maus was merged with the body of the other, largely undamaged Maus, requiring the use of 6 18-ton half-tracks just to pull the 55-ton turret off the damaged tank. The Panzer VIII Maus would have likely been an unstoppable superweapon if it ever rolled off the assembly lines in force. Luckily, Allied bombing had created serious difficulties for the German manufacturing, and Hitler's lack of focus on a single definitive weapon system doomed the effort before it even began. Had Hitler been more competent, however, the history of World War II would have been rewritten by the largest tank ever created.
Whew, all right. A barn burner of an episode. Dude, imagine if there was a little bit more time. Maybe they could have made some of these things and maybe swayed the entire course of history. Holy crap, that's scary to think about. But anyways, I'm curious what you guys, the experts, have to say about it. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think of the Maus tank? Leave your mustard down in the comment section below. But that's all the time that I have for today. So thank you guys so much for being here. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.